In the 1970s, the FBI thought they had pulled off the ultimate sting by recruiting South Boston's most dangerous son, Whitey Bulger. But while the Bureau was playing checkers, Bulger was playing chess. He didn't just become an informant, he became a strategist, turning the FBI into his own personal protection racket. This is the story of an unholy alliance where the feds gave up their souls, the mobsters gave up shit, and the city of Boston paid the ultimate price in blood. The origins of Whitey Bulger began with his father, James Sr., a son of Irish parents who traveled from Newfoundland to Massachusetts. After marrying Jane McCarthy, a first-generation immigrant, the couple welcomed their second child, James Jr., on September 3, 1929. The family soon transitioned to the streets of Boston, where the trajectory of James's life would deviate from the norm. Life took a grim turn when Bulger's father lost an arm in an industrial accident, plunging the household into deep poverty. By 1938, they sought refuge in South Boston's Mary Ellen McCormick housing projects, a fierce, insular Irish-American enclave. While his brothers, William and John, pursued academic success, James was seduced by the sirens of the sidewalk. It was on these corners that police dubbed him Whitey for his shock of blonde hair, a moniker he despised throughout his life. To his inner circle, he remained Jim or Boots, the latter a nod to the cowboy boots where he kept a switchblade concealed. This hidden edge became a hallmark of his rising persona. Bulger quickly built a reputation as a savage street fighter with an unshakable, almost tribal loyalty to Southie. By 14, a larceny arrest marked his entry into the Shamrocks gang, followed by a spree of forgery and armed robbery. These violent beginnings eventually led him to the cold reality of a juvenile reformatory. Following his release in 1948, Bulger attempted a pivot by joining the Air Force, training as a mechanic and earning his diploma. Yet the military's discipline failed to take root. His service was marred by assaults, desertion, and a 1951 arrest for rape. Despite this dark record of misconduct and barroom brawls, he walked away with an honorable discharge in 1952, heading home to Boston. In 1956, Bulger began a federal stint at Atlanta Penitentiary for armed robbery and hijacking. It was here, he later claimed, that he became a human guinea pig for the CIA's MK-Ultra program. Deceived into believing he was aiding a cure for schizophrenia, he was instead subjected to intense mind control experiments. Decades later, unearthed CIA documents would finally validate his harrowing account of government betrayal. Over 18 months, Bulger and other inmates were dosed with LSD in exchange for potential leniency. He described the resulting trips as a nightmarish descent into the very depths of true insanity. Haunted by internal voices, he lived in constant terror of being permanently committed if he spoke out. This psychological scarring remained a jagged shadow over his psyche for the rest of his life. By 1959, he was moved to the iron isolation of Alcatraz, where he pivoted toward self-improvement. Between bouts of weightlifting, he mastered typing and business law through various correspondence courses. He became an unlikely intellectual, devouring volumes of poetry, complex politics, and gritty military history. After a final transfer to Lewisburg, he walked out on parole in 1965, beginning a 46-year streak of evasion. Returning to the streets, Bulger started as a laborer before sliding into the service of mobster Donald Killeen. The Killeen brothers ran South Boston from the Transit Cafe, a local hub that would eventually become Whitey's own. As a bookmaker and loan shark, he began learning the mechanics of power within the neighborhood's Irish mob. This apprenticeship in the Southie underworld provided the foundation for his own eventual empire. A 1971 brawl involving Kenny Killeen ignited a bloody neighborhood-wide gang war against the rival Mullins. Amidst the mounting body count, Bulger set out to eliminate Paul McGonagall, but killed his innocent brother, Donald, instead. Upon realizing his fatal error, he reportedly showed zero remorse, bolstered by mentors who viewed the victim as expendable. This cold-blooded mistake signaled a terrifying new chapter in his criminal evolution. As the Mullins gained the upper hand, Bulger calculated a treacherous exit strategy to save his own skin. He secretly approached the Winter Hill Gang, offering to betray the Killeen leadership to end the stalemate. Following Donald Killeen's assassination in 1972, the warring factions were summoned to a sit-down to negotiate peace. Under the mediation of the Patriarca crime family, the rivals merged into a single, unified force. With the truce signed, Bulger and the Mullins seized total control over the South Boston rackets. He quickly began purging any lingering opposition by convincing his new bosses to sanction targeted hits. One veteran observer noted that the brilliant, manipulative Bulger was capable of teaching the devil new tricks. His victims soon included former allies, systematically erased to ensure his undisputed dominance. Kevin Weeks later noted that Bulger lived by a predatory code, preying almost exclusively on fellow criminals. When negotiations failed to meet his demands, he utilized swift, decisive violence as his primary language. A perceived slight, like a clenched fist, was often enough to sign a man's certain death warrant. Bodies were frequently moved or staged in elaborate ways specifically designed to baffle local authorities. By 1974, Bulger joined forces with Stephen Flemmi, acting as the primary muscle for the Winter Hill Gang. They soon branched out into a massive horse racing scheme, fixing outcomes through bribery and drugged animals. While the jockeys were being intimidated, Bulger and Flemmi were raking in fortunes from bookmakers nationwide. This lucrative partnership solidified their status as the most formidable duo in the city's history. Even as his criminal profile grew, Bulger remained a volatile political actor within the racially charged climate of Boston. He reportedly firebombed an elementary school in Wellesley to protest the city's mandatory school desegregation through busing. A year later, he targeted the John F. Kennedy birthplace with a Molotov cocktail and a direct hit against the Kennedy family. He left his mark in black spray paint, a violent signature on a city already on the edge. In 1971, the FBI first attempted to flip Bulger as an informant to dismantle the powerful Patriarca crime family. Special Agent John Connolly, a fellow South Boston native, was tasked with the pitch, but initially failed to bridge the trust gap. By 1974, Bulger partnered with Stephen Flemmi, unaware his new ally had already been a federal mole for nearly a decade. This secret dynamic laid the groundwork for one of the most corrupt chapters in American law enforcement history. The exact moment Bulger turned remains a subject of intense debate among historians and his former associates. Connolly later claimed he recruited Whitey during a clandestine late-night meeting at Wollaston Beach, promising protection from Italian rivals. Bulger's alleged response, "If they want to play checkers, we'll play chess," suggested he viewed the Bureau as a pawn. He wasn't just joining the government, he was preparing to manipulate it for his own survival. Kevin Weeks offers a more cynical view, suggesting Flemmi likely blackmailed Bulger into the arrangement to protect his own skin. Years later, Connolly showed Weeks files that seemed to prove the duo's cooperation against both the mafia and their own friends. Connolly justified the alliance by claiming he only used Bulger's name to keep the files active and the information flowing. In reality, the paperwork revealed a trail of betrayed associates who had been arrested based on these very reports. According to Weeks, the special relationship was a facade where the criminals were the ones truly in control. Connolly insisted the intelligence was for personal use, but the reports were inevitably disseminated to other investigators. This led to the systematic takedown of Irish and Polish bookmakers who had once considered Bulger a loyal friend. The chess Bulger spoke of was played with the lives of his neighbors, sacrifice by sacrifice. Throughout the 70s and 80s, the FBI prioritized the Italian mafia as the nation's singular greatest organized crime threat. This narrow focus allowed the Winter Hill Gang to fly under the radar, perceived as a secondary concern by the Boston field office. Even after several members became fugitives in 1979, the Bureau remained fixated on the patriarchas. This systemic tunnel vision created a vacuum of accountability that Bulger was more than happy to fill. By late 1977, FBI supervisor John Morris took charge of the organized crime squad, but he proved unable to restrain Connolly. Instead of policing his agent, Morris became a willing participant in the shielding of Bulger and Flemmi. To the Bureau's top brass, the pair were portrayed as indispensable assets whose intel was vital for career advancement. In truth, Flemmi would later admit they gave the feds shit while receiving gold in return. The corruption went beyond mere protection, devolving into a system of blatant bribery and personal favors. Connolly and Morris accepted cash and gifts during their frequent, off-the-record meetings with the mobsters. By 1982, Morris was so compromised that Bulger was paying for his girlfriend's travel expenses. Even as he moved to a high-profile anti-drug task force, Morris remained an active accomplice to the city's most dangerous men. The alliance was nearly exposed in 1983 when a brutal kidnapping linked to a patriarcha-owned business sparked a bloody retaliation. Boston police raided a shop co-owned by Bulger, finding a tortured victim hanging from a beef rack in a gruesome display. Despite the brutality, the neighborhood's ironclad code of silence kept the victim from testifying in open court. The ensuing string of retaliatory executions highlighted Morris's gross incompetence and finally triggered an internal FBI probe. The secret finally unraveled in 1988 when the Boston Globe's Spotlight team published a bombshell expose on Bulger's protected status. Rumors had swirled for years, as it was statistically impossible for a kingpin of his stature to remain unarrested. Driven by a mounting sense of guilt, Morris served as the anonymous source who confirmed the special relationship. Bulger immediately dismissed the report as a fabrication, relying on his street cred to keep his gang in line.